I just said to you, tell us your impressions of Upper Straits Lake after spending the time with us here today, what would you say?
Well, I have to frame that contextually. I mean,
Yeah, fine.
today, when we look at the lake, conditions are actually quite good. But I say that because our lakes are always in transition. And so we always have to think about what is this going to look like in the future too.
Good.
And good plant community diversity for a lake of this type. A lot of different species, and that's, from an ecologist perspective, a very good thing, because that tells me that the lake has tendency towards being a stable ecosystem, and it's a lake that's already in a good position to reach the only sustainable, the only really valid lake management goal that we have today when it comes to vegetation. And that is to establish a plant community that's diverse and healthy. And now by that I mean there's a lot of different species, lots of different species covering a lot of area. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't like any aquatic plants, but they may not realize that out of the 35 or so species that we commonly see in Michigan lakes today, we typically target for management maybe 4. And the rest of those species, the 30 to 31 species, the other ones, typically people don't notice them that much, or they appreciate them for their beauty, or they appreciate them for the structure they create for fish, but at the same time they don't get in the way of most recreational activities like boating or swimming. So they're just there. So really, looking at this lake, we see a couple of species that I am concerned about. One of them is actually a hybrid species, and that would be the milfoil.
Okay.
And
we hear a lot about Eurasian water milfoil. Is this what you're talking about?
Eurasian, or the hybrid types.
Okay.
And there's...
What's the native type? Northern milfoil?
There's a northern water milfoil, and it's actually very rare.
Because we haven't seen it here that I know of.
No, and I'm hard pressed to find it oftentimes too. But it has crossed with the Eurasian type, and these hybrids of these two parental types have spread throughout the state. They typically, and again, there's all kinds of genotypes. There's all different ones. We know there's probably 13 or 14 different Eurasian genotypes, and who knows how many crosses and back crosses there of hybrids. But a lot of them are not as aggressive or as weedy as what we remember Eurasian water milfoil to be, let's say, in the late 80s, early 90s even. So what we see today is a less aggressive plant, but it still does what we call extirpate or crowd out some of those good plants, the desirable ones. So I'm a little bit concerned by how much of that you have. The good news is you can target that specifically.
We can't, without doing a complete obliteration of all vegetation.
And you don't want to do that ever, because you lose your ecosystem
we
stability.
don't want to bomb the lake.
But the thing about the milfoils is we have the tools available to just target those. Sometimes people are disappointed by that because the milfoil's gone, and they might notice there's some native plants there. And we have to make that well known that this is a targeted treatment plan, and that there might be other plants there.
Well, you mentioned 2 of concern. Is the other one then going to pop up?
The other one is, and this is why I wanted to say what I saw today looked good. That other plant will spread. It will become a significant presence.
Does it start with starry?
Yeah, it starts with starry. Your starry stonewort. It's going to impact recreation.
I kind of thought you were going to
It's
say
going to impact ecosystem stability. It's very unpredictable. Can't tell you when.
How much do we have today? Is it at a point where we're about to lose control of it or anything?
No, not today. I don't think so. What we saw today, again, didn't seem to be a panic. It was in some of the canals, very dense along the western shoreline. We saw some patches there. They're not huge, but it's spread around here. So the thing about starry stonewort is it could be a lurking presence throughout the whole lake. And I've seen some lakes go from, say 10 acres to 350 acres in the course of about 18 months.
Really?
And now, did it actually spread? No. It was probably there. It's just conditions were right, and we don't know what those are, but the conditions were right for it to suddenly grow and bloom. And it literally will outcompete every other plant in the lake. Now, when that happens, it may also collapse. And when that happens, it's like you've done a whole lake herbicide treatment. And the whole ecosystem becomes unstable, water clarity goes to pot. And then the first plants that come back after an event like that are some of the weediest ones. It's like, we're looking at a lawn here. If you're to trample over that lawn and not, kill all the grass, what's the first thing that comes back into that area after you quit trampling on it? Well, it's the dandelions and it's the crabgrass. Same thing is true out in the lake. As soon as you take everything out, what you do is open up an area for the most weedy of all plant species. And that's generally not a desirable thing, because it means you're not having a diverse plant community spread throughout the whole lake. So that plant community, that diverse one, gives you stability by covering area, making it more difficult for the weedy ones to come in, like the turf grasses making it difficult for dandelions. So it does that. It helps to stabilize the sediments, preventing the sediments from being stirred and maybe releasing nutrients to algae you don't want.
Let me ask you this, Doug. We, for years and years, have been weed harvesting on this lake as the sole means of weed management. Given what you saw today and the time we've spent out here, what would be your comments on continuing on that path?
Well, I think harvesting, it's a strategy that, like a herbicide, it has selective influence on a plant community. And typically in the presence of things like starry stonewort and milfoil, they don't mind being cut and they'll come back very quickly. Almost like that scenario I was talking about where you tramp your lawn down before it comes back first. And some of our native plants don't do as well after being cut. Now that being said, you have a lot of native pondweeds, and when they're in front of somebody's dock or in their swimming area, that constitutes a nuisance. Those plants aren't particularly easy to kill with a herbicide. So you can see where I'm going with this one. Sometimes it's desirable to use harvesting, targeting native pondweeds where they're creating a nuisance, but then having as a prelude to that program, making sure that you get those plants that are favored, that are weedy, that are undesirable, that might be favored by harvesting. Make sure you take those out first, and then with selective herbicide controls, and then use the harvesting for some of the other things. So really it's an integrated program that I would suggest. There's room for a variety of tools out here, certainly, in terms of alleviating nuisance conditions. But I have to say this, as we talk about nuisance conditions, Upper Straits Lake is in great shape relative to other lakes. And we can look at this, especially when we were just talking about lake scan analysis. You would find that the lake is in very good shape and doesn't have the kind of nuisance levels that I usually see. So this lake is in good
we spent a lot of time
So you think it's an opportunity for us to maintain this level and try to keep the Eurasian and the starry stonewort in check?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, getting the Eurasian under control will be a big help to the plant community. But starry stonewort will be an issue. That is something you're going to have to deal with in the future.
We did a beta site right here near where we're talking, in front of Jim's house, and used someone that you're familiar with, Jeff Knox, as the applicator there, and the weed harvesters that we used this year, we were pretty impressed that they did a pretty doggone good job. So if we can build on this, and Jim, maybe you want to comment on the success of the
we were very
test
impressed with the fact that the herbicides did clear the bay, and we have a clean bay now. It's free of weeds. Of course, after a few months, the weeds start to come back, but not as profusely as they were in the spring. So we're very, very pleased with the results, and hope that we can spot the lake and find those spots where we have to use herbicides and get the starry stonewort and the Eurasian milfoil in check.
Look forward to working with you guys.
Same here.
This will be fun.